And our next guest, pleased to have Texas Congressman Pete Sessions. He sits on the House Oversight and House Financial Services Committee. Congressman, great to see you here on this Friday morning. We appreciate that.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Talk to us about the House passing this short-term expansion of the nation's spy powers early this morning, rejecting this last-minute deal to extend the measure for 5 years. So the expiration date, as we understand it, is pushed out another 10 days from April 30th, or right around there from April 20th. What is your read on that? Should this have been extended even longer than that? What needs to be done? Are there reforms that you're looking for?
Well, of course there are reforms we're looking for, but the insistence that this administration has to move past this issue has been met with opposition, and that I understand. We think that there are reasonable considerations that should be made. We believe that the issues that you've spoken about to hold federal agents accountable is important. I've been a target of this in the past, and it's called lawfare. It is where no real specific violation of the law occurs, but they want to take your time and have to have you get a lawyer. The bottom line is the connection between foreign intelligence, in other words, someone from another country, attempting to influence this country and then extending that to other people, mostly, I'm sure, members of Congress or other people, just by simply by a conversation. And that is not enough. And so with all this pushing itself, we have been unable to, and the administration has been unable to come to a wordsmithing that would acknowledge the correct way to handle this. So by unanimous consent, there's an agreement that we will take this back up on Monday. Cooler heads are going to have to prevail, but it's going to require both sides to understand that words can be met, but holding federal agents accountable and responsible, I think, is a minimum or something that would say you cannot violate the law. And if you do, there are sanctions against that.
Yeah, well, also Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, telling President Trump she had concerns about reauthorizing Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act without adding safeguards to protect Americans' privacy, what you mentioned previously. But Gabbard's appeal to the president fell on deaf ears. Trump's position on the FISA bill is the latest instance in which he's bucked the advice of Gabbard or outright sidelined her. Does this foreshadow, in your opinion, that she could be next to go from the administration? Well,
that's a very difficult issue. I'm sure that the president has made sure that Tulsi understands her role, her position in this. But I think the president, when faced with a lot of these very difficult circumstances, should understand that there will be people of good faith with a different idea. Receiving feedback, however, from someone that works for you should have been included in the discussion, and it's up to them to make better whatever circumstance there was, and then salute to that answer. It's okay to disagree.
Yeah.
It's not okay to leave the room and disagree, and I don't know which happened first or second.
Sure.
But I'm sure the president does.
Sure. But is DNI Gabbard on to something in terms of protections for the American people regarding FISA, how that's handled?
Well, that's a very good question, but we also have the timing of this, that we have large amounts of Homeland Security that are not being paid, and analysts that may or may not be at work, and a great big soccer international tournament that will be taking place in the United States with thousands of people who will be coming to the United States. And certainly somebody wants to say, perhaps John Ratcliffe, the CIA director, did, or perhaps Kesh Patel, that their eggs are fresh, that they would never do such a thing.
Sure.
But in fact, if it is that way, then allow the sanctions to be placed.
Allow the sanctions to be placed. We appreciate that, Congressman. I got to jump in.
And we need to add here, Article 3 judges need to be more apparent in oversight of these matters, since they give their authorization.
Yeah. I appreciate the time. I'm sorry to cut you off. We're out of time. We appreciate you coming on. We'll continue to follow that story and more. That is Congressman Pete Sessions joining us live. Thank you.